Okay, our third session is gonna be about career lessons. Career lessons come in various forms, from people, competitors, success, failures, this event tonight, of course. And this panel discussion will invite our speakers to share their most important lesson and how they translate into formative experiences for professional growth. Now, I'd like to invite our moderator for this session. Please give it up for the CEO and the founder of Kalibrr, Mr. Paul. Okay, our first speaker for this last session, he is the Chief Technology Officer of GO-JEK. He is the Director of Engineering at GO-JEK, an Indonesian unicorn, obviously. He has had 12 years of experience as a programmer, consultant, and entrepreneur. He started his career at Infosys before moving to ThoughtWorks, where he consulted for Fortune 500 clients. He then went on to co-found C42 Engineering, which was acquired by GO-JEK, to expand its engineering arm to Bangalore. He is a trustee of the Emerging Technology Trust, the non-profit organization that organized India's national Ruby, Golang, and DevOps conferences. Not rugby. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Niranjan. See, that's the spirit. I haven't even called him on stage, and he just went up. That's the way. Okay, our second speaker, he is a graduate from Ohio State University with marketing and international business major. He had over 19 years of professional experience in mass market and digital banking. He held the position of VP front-end system and head of bank of Ternama since in 2015. And he is currently the head of digital banking solution at Jenius, brought to you by BTPN. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Alfonso Tambunan.
All right. Thanks for being here, guys. So I think we're gonna dive right in, so we can really learn about the career trajectories that you guys have both had over the last few years. So Niranjan, you've been a founder, you've been a developer, you've been an entrepreneur, you've founded your own company. Can you walk us through just a little bit about that career journey and how you ended up becoming the CTO of what is arguably the most successful startup in Indonesia?
So I passed out in 2015 as a mechanical engineer and joined Infosys as my first company. Infosys has a training program which runs for 3 months. So that's where I learned COBOL. And I know now that's a language to know. So I know COBOL. After doing like 6 months of COBOL, I shifted to Java. So I know that as well. And I continued in Infosys for almost a year and a half. At that point, I decided that I want to switch to a different company. And I found about ThoughtWorks, which was a small consulting company based out of US. They had a Bangalore office, Pune office. So I decided to join ThoughtWorks, and that kind of changed my career completely. I started working with ThoughtWorks. I continued as a Java programmer, but I got to learn a lot from a lot of senior people who were there to support me and teach me the basics and fundamentals of computer programming. And that's the first time I realized that, languages, different methodologies, different patterns, these are just tools. What really matters is you have to keep learning, and you have to keep exploring what you're really good at. So I shifted from Java to Ruby, then did some Erlang on the side, blah, blah, blah. After some time, I was working in ThoughtWorks, and I always wanted to do a product on my own. But overall Indian VC scene in 2010 wasn't what it is today.
Still early.
It was still early. So finding money is difficult. So we decided that, hey, we know how to do consulting, so why not start a consulting business and fund product from that? So me, a couple of my friends from ThoughtWorks, and one of my old college friend, 4 of us decided to start C42. It was primarily a Ruby consulting shop, and the motto behind the shop was always, we are expensive, but we are good. We'll solve your problems, right? We continued working with clients on C42. And after a year and a half, we had enough money in the bank to invest in product. So we started our first product as part of C42 called RubyMonk, which was a Ruby learning platform. It's still live, gets a lot of love. But being a techie, the thing was, hey, if I build a beautiful product, people will use it and people will pay for it. But unfortunately, market doesn't react like that. So people are still using it, but no one was willing to pay for it. So we had to get back to consulting. And as that journey continued, we essentially partnered with Sequoia as their preferred vendors to go and help solve problems for their portfolio companies. And March 2015 is when Sequoia was looking at Go-JEK as potential investment. And they talked to us saying that, hey, why are you guys focusing on US and Europe and those markets? While those are interesting markets, there's a lot to be done in Southeast Asia. And they got us to Indonesia to meet 3 companies in Indonesia. Go-JEK was one of them. And honestly, that was not their first priority. Okay, in March 20.
Solving the engineering problems.
Solving the engineering problem for Go-JEK was not the first priority. There was another company which was, focus on them. But within a month, things changed. Go-JEK picked up, and suddenly, the kind of demand Go-JEK was seeing shot up like crazy. So we came in, we were like, yeah, let's work together. And that's how my journey with Go-JEK started. As a consultant, as an outsider, coming here and helping Go-JEK essentially grow from, at that time, 3,000 orders a day to whatnot. Like, we have grown like 1,000 times from then, right? And I got introduced to Nadeem. I got introduced to the founding team of Go-JEK. I worked with them. And after working with them for 3 months, I was in Jakarta. We had gone out for a party. And Nadeem was like, hey, dude, what are you doing in India? Why don't you just join Go-JEK? And I told him that I would really love to, but I'm running my own company, and I still need to take care of that, right? And Nadeem's response to that was, don't worry about your company, we'll take care of it. So they ended up acquiring Go-JEK, and I became part of Go-JEK. And ever since, life has completely changed. Like, you hear about hypergrowth startups, but you don't know what it feels like till you're in one. Right. So, yeah, that's the overall journey so far.
Thank you for sharing that. I think not just, I don't know if the mic is on, not just your life has changed, but I think you've also changed the lives of tens of millions of Indonesians who now use Go-JEK.
Definitely, right? Like, I do remember my first trip to Indonesia, right? That was in 2015. And if I look at Indonesia, like Jakarta today versus in 2015, the economy has changed. The people have changed. The overall market sentiment has changed. Like, things have moved a lot in last 2 years.
I think that the thing that I picked up from your story is you were working at ThoughtWorks, and it validates what someone said in the other panel, which is don't optimize for working at the greatest company, because nobody knows who ThoughtWorks is. Optimize for working in an environment where you can work with great people you can learn from.
Definitely. Because that's the most important part, right? Like, specifically in your early days of career, what you want to optimize for is not money. It's not anything else, but you want to optimize for how much you're learning and because growth is exponential, right? If you learn 1x in your earlier days versus 5x your earlier days, where you will be 10 years from then will be completely different.
I think it's a great tip for everyone that's going to be interviewing. Never ask the company or the interviewer how much you're going to earn. Ask them, what am I going to learn? Who am I going to learn it from? I think that's an impressive question to ask. Thank you for sharing the story. It's been amazing. Alfonso, you've also had an interesting journey as well. A little bit more on the business side, but with also some technology experience, some prior bank experience. How do you become the head of digital banking and running Genius?
So before I start, ThoughtWorks is a legend, so it's not a small company. So yeah, basically yes, I started off as a sales and business development for a subsidiary of IBM Indonesia, straight out of college. Yes, I was a marketing and international business graduate. Started off in sales and business development, but slowly but surely moving to the technical side of things by starting off with doing project management for a few key projects in local banks like Bank Mandiri, Lipo, and Bank Universal back in the days. And after that, after 10 years of holding multiple roles within the company, I moved and switched to Bank Danamon, one of the top 5 local banks in Indonesia, and held various positions in that bank, starting from IT vendor management, so looking after the vendor relationship, and also starting to maintain mission critical systems for the bank. Mostly started off with the ones for our core business back then, which is the mass market systems, and also for other systems like trade finance, loan origination system, and collection. And after that, after 10 years working in Bank Danamon, I got an offer to work in a small company which was actually providing services to Gojek in the mobile app landscape. 1 year there, basically leading a team of engineers, around 50 of them, delivering mobile apps for the upcoming startups like Gojek, Matahari Mall, and the likes of that. And then to Genius, which was, when I was approached by BTP and Genius, I was thinking, why do I want to go back to bank after tasting the life of a small startup? But after talking to our CEO, Pak Jerry, and to our business head, it's very clear that their vision of building a startup-like unit within the bank is, they mean business. So it's not just a pitch to approach talent, but they really mean business. Like Pak Jerry, he's a true champion of agile within the bank. So it's a concept that he truly believes, which makes me to move to Genius. So right now we're having a team of around 60 engineers coming mostly from startups. So we managed to build a culture of engineering that attract talent, not just from banks, but also from startups. So that's the gist of it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. When you kind of look back at your career, Alfonso, and this is a question that I saw pop up, can you share a pivotal moment or a story where you failed? What was that failure, and how did you overcome it?
The one that sticks to my mind was when I had to cut the cord of a project midway. Why it was difficult? Because the stakeholder, I need to convey to the stakeholder, basically calling a spade. The project is a failure. And it was boiling in my gut, but I had to do it based on multiple mistakes that I missed in managing the project. But I had to make sure that before I do that I had a backup plan, meaning that I come up with options, with clear timelines, with risk mitigation in place, and then we managed to pull it off. It was a risky decision, but I had to do it because also there's a timeline that we had to meet for the regulator. So that was one failure, if I may say, that I had to learn through, but yeah, live through it.
Has that shaped you in any way in your career?
Oh, yes, definitely. The stakeholder management, how we evaluate and assess our potential partners, let it be vendors or business partners. It's not just about the technology, but also the people that we have to work with together. So that's a key learning lesson.
You know, but what I picked up from that is, when you're working with stakeholders, you're working with a boss, don't just present a problem to them. If there's a problem, work on what the solutions can be. Because especially if you're the one that's going to be held accountable to that problem, no boss just wants to see another problem presented on their desk. That's what we deal with all of the time. Work on the solution. Niranjan.
So I was earlier talking about RubyMonk, right?
Yep.
So
This is the e-learning platform.
this is the e-learning platform. So RubyMonk, we launched in 2013. 2012, we launched RubyMonk. And we launched it at RubyConf US, and we got a massive adoption. Like, we were on Hacker News front page for 48 hours, top 7 for 8 hours, right? And we are one of the first platforms entering into the whole e-learning wave which started then, right? And we are super excited, and we are like, yeah, this is the product we want to...
Pre-Code Academy?
Around the same time.
Around the same time.
Yeah. So we're like, definitely, this is the product we want to get behind. And we came back, and we continued working on it for another year. After a year, we said that, okay, now let's go raise funding. And we went to raise funding, and we couldn't, right? And that was one of the biggest learning experience, because, so few assumptions we made out of the product, right? One is, if we build a great product, people will come and pay. That's not the case. Another thing which we learned, and specifically if people are looking to, start startups, one of the key learning was, you don't raise money when you want it, you raise money when you can, right? When we saw the first hockey stick growth on RubyMonk, if we had gone for fundraise at that point of time, we might have essentially walked away with good amount of funding, and life would have been completely different today.
So you're pre-hockey stick when you tried to fundraise.
No, we actually, that was a mistake, right? We saw the hockey stick, then it flattened after a month, then it continued to be flat for 12 months, and then we went to raise funding.
I see.
Absolutely wrong time to go and ask for money.
So you really have to pick that inflection point.
Exactly.
When you go out and fundraise.
Yep.
In your day-to-day role as CTO now, what do you enjoy most?
So,
and what is actually the day of a CTO like?
That's a really difficult question to answer. So as a CTO, there are 3 things which I need to look after. One is building and growing the team. Second is making sure that we are delivering the business value day in, day out. And third and most important thing is balancing between what business wants today versus what business will want tomorrow, and making sure that we are investing in right tech to essentially serve both purposes. And underlying to all these 3 things, a meta problem which you need to address is what kind of culture you are building. Now, while doing all these things, what I really enjoy doing is whenever I can squeeze those 30 minutes or 1 hour to go pair with someone and write some code.
Oh, wow. So you're still writing code?
Yeah.
That's very Mark Zuckerberg-like.
Okay.
Thank you. Alfonso, what do you enjoy running? What do you enjoy about running a digital banking company?
What I like most, basically 2 things. One is to see how the team grows when they come as hardcore engineers, and after a while they started to transform to become ones that are thinking beyond their technical acumen. They yearn to know more about the product. They want to understand the user journeys. They want to be more cross-functional. So that's what I most enjoy, seeing the team members transform. Second is to see how the product has grown and being used by the users. By getting the testimony from the users that indeed the product is giving value to their daily life through Genius.
Got it. So I think I have time for maybe one more of my question, then we'll go to the audience questions. My last question for the both of you, we'll start with you. We have a lot of young people in the audience. What are the skills, either technical and non-technical skills, that you think are going to be important for them to develop, not just as engineers, but as leaders in a company like Go-JEK, or to build their own company?
So one of the most important skill, I think, is mistakes do happen, right? And you do take your production down once in a while, and those kind of things do happen because Murphy exists. The most important thing is you should not panic. When something goes wrong, if you panic, you will commit more mistakes. Instead of that, you need to keep calm. You need to analyze the situation. You need to understand how you can solve the problem. And most importantly, after you solve the problem, you need to retrospect in terms of what went wrong, what all things you did which led to that problem occurring, right? Because as a developer or even as a leader, you cannot run away from mistakes because you're learning, right? It's not that you know all. Life will be boring if that comes true.
Correct.
Right? So not panic when you're in a stress situation, and then with calm head, evaluate actually what happened and figure out how you can avoid it the next time and make sure that you do avoid it the next time.
So kind of taking time to really reflect.
Yes.
And to truly learn from the mistake.
Yep.
Alfonso.
In terms of technical or hard skills, technology grows so fast that there's no magical tools or language that you need to master. But if I reflect to the profiles that I seek through the candidates through interviews, is that I'm looking for those that are basically open to learn new things and open for feedback no matter how harsh. So at times I met engineers who are so zealous about their skills or their preference of a specific tool or language that it's just using Thomas' word earlier. That's just my KO when I talk to candidates. So have an open mind and then willingness to learn.
Okay.
I'd like to add one more thing.
Sure.
Which is, in any field, what you need to essentially understand and grok is you need to understand the first principles. Because a lot of things which you will learn in future will be built on top of first principles. Like, for example, if you know abstraction and encapsulation, you can move from language to language and still write beautiful code. If you know how to test your code, you'll make sure that you're not going to release bugs. And these are the first principles which you really, really need to understand and internalize. And that will help you a lot.
And I think that's related to one of the questions up there, which is, what are the programming languages I should learn? And I think what you're saying is, before even focusing on the language, what are the core principles of programming?
Yeah, definitely.
And would you recommend people start with COBOL or Java first?
No.
Really learn some of those first principles?
I would recommend people to start with things like test-driven development. And
Say that again?
Test-driven development.
Test-driven development.
What language does not matter. Learn test-driven development. Learn the 4 simple principles of Agile, XP programming. That is, do not repeat yourself. Whenever you're writing code, one concept should appear only once. Pay very close attention to names because names carry a lot of meaning, right? So when you're writing code, and that's one of the most complex problem in software engineering, giving right names. And understand these basic principles to build on top of that. Focus on that rather than learning a language, because languages will change, right? 10 years back, Ruby was a hot language, right? Ruby and Python were competing with each other. Today, hipsters are talking about Elixir and Clojure and different language. Language keeps changing, right? And actually going forward is going to change at much rapid pace. But if you understand those fundamentals, you can build on top of that.
Would you say that most of the engineers that you encounter, maybe in an interview, do you feel that those principles are solid or grounded?
Those are the principles we actually check for. Okay.
Not the languages.
We don't hire a Java programmer or a Ruby programmer. We say that, hey, if you're a software engineer and if you know how to write code, language you'll learn.
Alfonso, how do you balance speed and quality in managing your teams and their output?
Sorry, if you can repeat again?
How do you balance maybe the business need and maybe the CEO's desire to get product out quickly and your need to make sure that you're bug-free, you're pushing a high-quality product before it's ready?
We need to inform and educate the business users that not necessarily being fast means the best approach, because again, we're talking about, in the case of Genius, we're talking about people's money. So quality and reliability are taking precedence over the fastness of delivery. So that's so far the approach that we take when we convey the importance of having a shippable product with the utmost quality instead of having it delivered fast. So it takes a struggle, but we're getting there. And because the business is just wanting to ship out fast.
I think knowing your stakeholders, knowing the fact that you are dealing in money, I think speed is probably not what you want to optimize for. What about you guys? How do you balance that?
Well, that's always a challenge. You try to make sure that most of the time you are leaning towards quality rather than speed. But obviously, sometimes there are business demands where you need to essentially, meet that timeline, rush and finish something. And at that time, you have to take a pragmatic call that, hey, I'm okay to let this hack go in production, as long as I'm also going to say that once it is gone in production, I'm going to fix it immediately. I'm not going to let it live for long.
Last question for you guys. How do you guys use machine learning, if you guys use it, at Go-JEK and at Genius?
We have recently started using machine learning in Go-JEK. By recently, I mean 6 months back. Currently, most of the focus is on our core allocation, which is when you place an order, finding an appropriate driver. And how do we make sure that we find you the best driver possible who is going to deliver best customer experience. Other than that, we are also delving into food recommendations and those kind of machine learning challenges. We are also evolving programs for fraud detection, because when you are such a big company, people do try to scam you.
Correct.
So catching them and making sure that does not happen. But honestly, what machine learning is going to be 2 years from now is going to change the world. So really excited and to get there and invest more and more into that space, because that's where a lot of benefits are going to come from. Like if you remember, Sundar Pichai opened Google I/O saying that it's now AI first. Yes. So that's where we need to head.
And I don't know if you guys saw what AlphaGo Zero did to AlphaGo.
Yeah. That was like last month.
Last month, yeah.
100 to 0.
100 to 0. Yeah. Alfonso, how do you guys use machine learning, if any? Or are you guys even evaluating blockchain?
Right now we haven't implemented it. We have a small group of people within our engineering team that is focusing in R&D. So it's like a revolving door. People can just join that team and try new stuff, doing spikes. And one of which 2 people are exploring machine learning, but we haven't we were not yet using it in our product.
So I think we're out of time. Niranjan, thank you. Alfonso, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys sharing your stories, and I think hopefully you guys stick around and the audience can talk to you guys. Thank you.
Sure.